Once upon a time in Tokyo, Japan, a video game brand was created by Sony Interactive Entertainment, a division of Sony. Nobody ever imagined that one day it would become one of the most renowned video game companies in the world, known as PlayStation. But how did PlayStation become such a renowned gaming company? Why did it become a gaming company? Is it true that PS1 games were sold until 2006? And does PlayStation release lighter versions of them at the beginning? Were the discs really massive? And is it true that you could only Metal Gear Solid by unplugging your controller? And was PS1 really a treasure trove of pirates?
It's time for me to answer all these questions and more, since this is ASMR. Aaron, back at it again with another daily video to help you relax. So lay back and enjoy the ride. I hope this read helps you get you through your day, or even better, I hope this video helps you gently fall asleep. I can't wait to get started.
This is the tale of PlayStation.
PlayStation was the brainchild of Ken Kutaragi, a Sony executive who managed one of the company's hardware engineering divisions and was later dubbed the father of the PlayStation. The console's origins date back to 1988, where it was originally a joint project between Nintendo and Sony to create a CD-ROM for the Super Famicom. Although Nintendo denied the existence of the Sony deal as late as March 1991, Sony revealed a Super Famicom with a built-in CD-ROM drive that incorporated Green Book technology, or CDI, called PlayStation, also known as SNES CD, at the Consumer Electronics Show in June 1991. However, a day after the announcement at CES, Nintendo announced that it would be breaking its partnership with Sony, opting to go with Philips instead, but using the same technology. The deal was broken by Nintendo after they were unable to come to an agreement on how revenue would be split between the two companies. The breaking of the partnership infuriated Sony president Norio Oga, who responded by appointing Kutaragi with the responsibility of developing the PlayStation project to rival Nintendo. At that time, negotiations were still ongoing between Nintendo and Sony, with Nintendo offering Sony a non-gaming role regarding their new partnership with Philips. This proposal was swiftly rejected by Kutaragi, who was facing increasing criticism over his work with regard to entering the video game industry from within Sony. Negotiations officially ended in May 1992, and in order to decide the fate of the PlayStation project, a meeting was held in June 1992, consisting of Sony President Oga, PlayStation head Kutaragi, and several senior members of Sony's board. At the meeting, Kutaragi unveiled a proprietary CD-ROM-based system he had been working on, which involved playing video games with 3D graphics to the board. Eventually, Sony President Oga decided to retain the project after being reminded by Kutaragi of the humiliation he suffered from Nintendo. Nevertheless, due to strong opposition from a majority present at the meeting, as well as widespread internal opposition to the project by the older generation of Sony executives, Kutaragi and his team had to be shifted from Sony's headquarters to Sony Music, a completely separate financial entity owned by Sony, so as to retain the project and maintain relationships with Philips for the MMCD development project, which helped lead to the creation of the DVD. According to SCE's producer Ryoji Akagawa and chairman Shigeo Moriyama, there was uncertainty over whether the console should primarily focus on 2D sprite graphics or 3D polygon graphics. Eventually, after witnessing the success of Sega's Virtua Fighter in Japanese arcades, that Sony realized the direction of the PlayStation became instantly clear. and 3D polygon graphics became the console's primary focus. The PlayStation logo was designed by Manobu Sakamoto. He wanted the logo to capture the 3D support of the console, but instead of just adding apparent depth to the letters P and S, he created an optical illusion that suggested the letters in depth of space. Sakamoto also stuck with 4 bright principal colors: red, yellow, green, and blue, only having to tune the green color for better harmony across the logo. Sakamoto also designed the black and white logo based on the same design, reserved for times where colors could not be used. At Sony Music Entertainment, Kutaragi worked closely with Shigeo Moriyama, the CEO of Sony Music, and with Akira Sato to form Sony Computer Entertainment Inc., SCEI. On November 16, 1993, a building block of SCEI was its initial partnership with Sony Music, which helped SCEI attract creative talent to the company as well as assist SCEI in manufacturing, marketing, and producing discs, something that Sony Music had been doing with music discs. The final 2 key members of SCEI were Terry Tokunaka, the president of SCEI from Sony's headquarters, and Olaf Olofsson. Olofsson was CEO and president of New York-based Sony Interactive Entertainment, which was the parent company for the 1994 found Sony Computer Entertainment of America. The PlayStation project, SCEI's first official project, was finally given the green light by Sony executives in 1993, after a few years of development. Also in 1993, Phil Harrison, who later became president of Sony Computer Entertainment Worldwide Studios, was recruited into SCEI to attract developers and publishers to produce games for their new PlayStation platform. Computer Gaming World in March 1994 reported a rumor that the Sony PSX would be released in Japan before the end of this year and will retail for less than $400. After a demonstration of Sony's distribution plan as well as tech demos of its new console to game publishers and developers in a hotel in Tokyo in 1994, numerous developers began to approach PlayStation. 2 of whom later became major partners were Electric Arts in the West and Namco in Japan. One of the factors which attracted developers to the platform was the use of a 3D-capable CD-ROM-based console, which was much cheaper and easier to manufacture for in comparison to Nintendo's rival console, which used cartridge systems. The project eventually hit Japanese stores in December 1994 and gained massive sales due to its lower price point than its competitor, the Sega Saturn. The popularity of the console spread after its release worldwide in North America and Europe. The original PlayStation, released in Japan on December 3, 1994, was the first of the ubiquitous PlayStation series of console and handheld game devices. It has included successor consoles and upgrades, including the Net Yorozi, a special black PlayStation with tools and instructions to program PlayStation games and applications. PS1, a smaller version of the original, and the Pocket Station, a handheld which enhances PlayStation games and also acts as a memory card. It was part of the 5th generation of video game consoles, competing against the Sega Saturn and the Nintendo 64. By December 2003, the PlayStation and PS1 had shipped a combined total of 102.49 million units, eventually becoming the first video game console to sell 120 million units. Released on July 7, 2000, concurrently with its successor, the PlayStation 2. The PS1, stylized as PS1, was a considerably smaller, redesigned version of the original PlayStation video game console. The PS1 went on to outsell all other consoles, including its successor, throughout the remainder of the year. It featured 2 main changes from its predecessor, the first being a cosmetic change to the console, and the second being the home menu's graphical user interface, a variation of the GUI previously used only on PAL consoles up to that point. Released in 2000, 15 months after the Dreamcast, and a year before its other competitors, the Xbox and the Nintendo GameCube, the PlayStation 2 is part of the 6th generation of video game consoles, and is backwards compatible with most original PlayStation games. Like its predecessor, it has received a slimmer redesign. It is the most successful home console in the world, having sold over 155 million units as of December 28, 2012. On November 29, 2005, the PS2 became the fastest game console to reach 100 million units shipped, accomplishing the feat within 5 years and 9 months from its launch. This achievement occurred faster than its predecessor, the PlayStation, which took 9 years and 6 months since launch, to reach the same figure. PlayStation 2 shipments in Japan ended on December 28, 2012. The Guardian reported on January 4, 2013, that PS2 production had ended worldwide, but studies showed that many people all around the world still own one even if it is no longer in use. PlayStation 2 has been ranked as the best-selling console of all time as of 2015. Released in 2004, 4 years after the launch of the original PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 2 Slim line was the first major redesign of the PlayStation 2. Released on November 11, 2006 in Japan, the PlayStation 3 is a 7th-generation game console from Sony. It competes with the Microsoft Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii. The PS3 is the first console in the series to introduce the use of motion sensing technology through its 6-axis wireless controller. The console also incorporates a Blu-ray disc player and features a high-definition resolution. The PS3 was originally offered with either a 20GB or 60GB hard drive, but over the years its capacity increased in increments available up to 500GB. The Sony PlayStation 3 has sold over 80 million consoles worldwide as of November 2013. Like its predecessors, the PlayStation 3 was re-released in 2009 as a slim model. In 2012, Sony revealed a new super slim PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 4, or PS4, is the latest video game console from Sony Computer Entertainment, announced at a press conference on February 20, 2013. In the meeting, Sony revealed some hardware specifications of the new console. The 8th-generation system, launched in the fourth quarter of 2013, introduced the x86 architecture to the PlayStation series. According to lead system architect Mark Kearney, development on the PlayStation 4 began as early as 2008. PlayStation Europe CEO Jim Ryan emphasized in 2011 that Sony wanted to avoid launching the next-generation console behind the competition. Among the new applications and services, Sony introduced the PlayStation app, allowing PS4 owners to turn smartphones and tablets into a second screen to enhance gameplay. The company also planned to debut PlayStation Now game streaming service, powered by technology from Gaikai. By incorporating a share button on the new controller and making it possible to view in-game content being streamed live from friends, Sony planned to place more focus on social gameplay as well. The PlayStation 4 was first released in North Korea on November 15, 2013. PlayStation 4 Slim, officially marketed simply as PlayStation 4 or PS4, was unveiled on September 7, 2016. PlayStation 4 Pro, or PS4 Pro for short, originally announced under the codename Neo, was unveiled on September 7, 2016. The first news of the PlayStation 5 came from Mark Kearney in an interview with Wired in April 2019. Sony intends for the PlayStation 5 to be its next-generation console and to ship worldwide by the end of 2020. In early 2019, Sony's financial report for the quarter ending March 31, 2019, affirmed that the new next-generation hardware was in development but would ship no earlier than April 2020. The current specifications were released in October 2019. The console is slated to use an 8-core, 16-thread CPU based on AMD's Zen 2 microarchitecture, manufactured on the 7nm process node. The graphics processor is a custom variant of AMD's Navi family using the RDNA microarchitecture, which includes support for the hardware acceleration of ray tracing rendering, enabling real-time ray-traced graphics. The new console will ship with a custom SSD storage, as Kearney emphasized the need for fast loading times and larger bandwidth to make games more immersive, as well as to support the required content streaming from disk for 8K resolution. In a second interview with Wired in October 2019, further details of the new hardware were revealed. The console's integrated Blu-ray drive would support 100GB Blu-ray discs and Ultra HD Blu-ray, whilst game installation from a disc is mandatory as to take advantage of the SSD. The user will have some fine-grained control of how much they want to have installed, such as only installing the multiplayer components of a game. Sony is developing an improved suspended gameplay state for the PlayStation 5 to consume less energy than the PlayStation 4. The system's new controller will have adaptive triggers that can change the resistance to the player as necessary, such as changing the resistance during the action of pulling an arrow back in a bow-in game. The controller will also have strong haptic feedback through voice coil actuators, which together with an improved controller speaker is intended to give better in-game feedback, USB-C connectivity, together with a higher-rated battery, are other improvements to the new controller. The PlayStation 5 will feature a completely revamped user interface. The PlayStation 5 is set to be backwards compatible with PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR games, with Cerny stating that the transition to the new console is meant to be a soft one. However, in later interviews, Sony was unwilling to commit to backward compatibility. At CES 2020, Sony unveiled the official logo for the platform. The original PlayStation was so popular, games were still being made for it throughout the lifespan of the PS2. 2,418 titles were released, with sales of almost 962 million units. An average game cartridge of the time was 12 megabytes. A PlayStation CD was 650 megabytes. This meant incredible graphics and high-quality music, but also mind-numbing loading times. The boss, Psycho Mantis, could read your mind, read your controller inputs. To defeat him, the player had to unplug their controller and plug it back into the Player 2 port. Very meta. The CD-based PS1 was released just as home computers started getting CD rewriter drives built into them. Piracy exploded, and by the end of its life cycle, anyone with a steady hand could chip their console to play copied or foreign games in minutes. And so ends the tale of the famous video game console, PlayStation, that is loved by gamers across the world.